Three motorcycle riders entered the Red Mesa tavern in search of trouble. Rather, they located a former bounty hunter who had tracked down 3 states' most dangerous offenders. What followed would reveal a $100 million trafficking scheme, bring down one of the biggest criminal organizations in the Southwest, and ruin a dishonest sheriff's office. They believed they were threatening a single woman who owned a tavern in a tiny town. Rather, they engaged in combat with the renowned shadowhunter Emily Cooper, who over the course of her 15-year career had caught or eliminated more than 200 valuable targets. Sometimes the predator that is most dangerous is the one that is not visible. A brief silence before we go on. Please let us know where you are watching from. Make sure to hit subscribe if you're liking these stories, since tomorrow's episode is going to be incredible. As Emily Cooper carefully cleaned the Red Mesa Saloon's worn bar top, the evening heat shimmered across Route 66. The walls were covered with old photographs that told tales of the Old West that seemed very different from the current issues afflicting this little Arizona town. Her movements were accurate, efficient, and the result of years of training that time could not undo. With the exception of the mellow music coming from Clara Garcia's radio in the kitchen and the occasional clinking of glasses as Emily refilled the shelves, the saloon was silent. She saw Deputy Rogers conducting his routine patrol through the glass, purposefully avoiding eye contact, another indication that something wasn't quite right with the local police department. The quiet of the evening was broken by the thunder of motorcycles. Emily's attentive ears detected the distinct sound of at least 3 bikes, causing her hand to pause in the middle of cleaning. If the recent trend continued, Desert Vipers MC. They have been appearing more regularly, moving into unclaimed territory in testing limits. 2 of his men, their boots heavy on the wooden floor, were escorted in the door by Richard Blade Pierce. The commander pulled his disfigured face into what he likely believed to be a lovely smile. Shade and Bear dispersed behind him, adopting stances that suggested military training rather than normal motorcycle conduct. Blade slipped into a bar stool and said, "Good evening, ma'am." He had heard that this establishment had the best whiskey in 3 counties. Emily put down her cleaning cloth, moving in a relaxed manner. "We have whiskey available. Your taste will determine whether it's the best." Blade's eyes did not meet his smile. "The silence in here tonight is awful. It must be slow. If something happened to slow it down, that would be a shame." "The silence is intentional," Emily said. "Certain clients aren't worth the hassle they cause." With a snort, Bear approached the collection of antique guns that was hung on the wall. "Collector, nice things." "Just enjoying history," Emily remarked, observing how his eyes lingered on particular weapons, judging their worth too expertly. Clara emerged from the kitchen doorway, using her apron to wipe her hands. They exchanged a subtle warning as her eyes briefly locked with Emily's. They had already observed this pattern in other locations. Businesses are under strain, law enforcement is ignoring the situation, and motorcycles are encroaching. Blade went on to say, "You've only been in town for about 3 years," in reference to Sheriff Carter. "Claimed that when old Joe Mackenzie suffered that terrible accident, you purchased this property from him." Though her thoughts were racing, Emily maintained a bland demeanor. Carter had been questioning her about her past. "The sheriff appears to be knowledgeable about local business issues." "He's interested," Blade said. "Our sheriff is a community-minded man who enjoys keeping tabs on his town's residents. The problem is that we asked certain questions of ourselves." Prior to her arrival in Red Mesa, no one appears to have heard of Emily Cooper. Without being asked, Emily put a glass of water in front of Blade and stated, "Not much to know, searching for a peaceful spot to call home." Shade abruptly shifted, toppling a chair. Emily didn't flinch as the crash reverberated throughout the saloon. Every action was monitored by her eyes, which recorded locations, angles, distances, and other details that formerly could have made the difference between life and death. "Quiet is overrated," Blade remarked, his amiable demeanor faltering a bit. "The town is expanding and changing. Astute entrepreneurs are aware of when to adjust and when to take advantage of new collaboration chances. Emily firmly looked into his eyes. I would rather have my bar, my regular clientele, and myself. Blade put a business card on the bar and stood up, thinking he might want to change his mind. In small places, things happen. Mishaps, fires, and troublemakers who cause issues. It's nice to have friends who look out for you. Did Vicente's place end up like that? From the doorway of the kitchen, Clara inquired. Too many mishaps. Blade's face became stern. A sad circumstance. Better insurance should have been in place. Picking up the card, Emily saw a phone number and the Desert Viper's MC insignia. I'll remember it. Blade gestured for his soldiers to do that. Miss Cooper, we'll be seeing you around. Very soon. Clara switched the sign to closed and secured the door after they had departed. She spoke in Spanish, believing Emily would understand. They're getting bolder. Vicente's restaurant came first, followed by the hardware store. They're here now. As she looked over the business card, Emily's mind was already piecing together the larger picture. For mere intimidation, the Desert Vipers were too meticulous and well organized. Their territorial expansion was too calculated, and their movements showed military accuracy. She instructed Clara to call Miguel. Instruct him to spend tonight in the old warehouse district. Our new buddies aren't just operating a protection racket, I think. Clara understood the message and nodded. Miguel, a former Army Ranger who was now a private investigator, was one of Emily's old acquaintances. The Desert Vipers would require proof if they were planning something more significant. Pulling up a burner phone she hadn't used in months, Emily made her way to the back office. Quiet observation for 3 years was coming to an end. A former acquaintance, one of whom was an FBI agent who still owed her a favor, needed to be contacted. Emily considered Blade's military-style strategies, the weaponry Bear had been inspecting, and Sheriff Carter's unexpected curiosity about her past as she dialed. The fragments were there, creating a scene she had seen in other towns. However, she was in the lead this time. Unaware that Emily Cooper had spent 15 years searching for people just like them, they assumed they were interacting with a straightforward barmaid. A recognizable voice picked up the phone. Bennett, she muttered. Shadow is here. We must discuss Red Mesa. I believe I've made a significant discovery. Emily Cooper was driving her old Ford truck down a dirt back road near Red Mesa when dawn illuminated the desert sky in purple and gold hues. 10 miles out of town, at an abandoned gas station, was the meeting place. It was distant enough to keep prying eyes away but close enough to provide plausible deniability in the event that someone spotted her truck. Mike Bennett, an FBI agent, was already there, concealed behind the dilapidated building in his government-issue SUV. 3 years had passed with little change in him. Same sharp look, same no-nonsense attitude. The hint of gray in his temples was the only difference. As she walked up to him, he remarked, "You look domestic. I never imagined Shadowhunter operating a saloon." Emily propped herself up against her truck. The times are different. Weight is being moved across Red Mesa by the Desert Vipers. It looks like military-grade equipment. Bennett took out a big dossier and said, "We've been tracking their expansion across 3 states. However, they are merely the muscle. The cords are being pulled by a larger person." Emily said, "Los Lobos Cartel," observing Bennett's response. "The MC is being used as a front for something more significant than firearms. Last night, the bikers came over to my apartment. Blade Pierce, their leader, was formerly in the military. If I had to guess, it would be Special Forces." Bennett gave a somber nod. "Discharged with dishonor in 19. Before that, led a Black Ops team. These are the kinds of procedures that aren't documented." As Emily took in this information, a dust devil blew across the deserted parking lot. "The sheriff is also involved. Carter, William. He has been inquiring about my history. Bennett said, be careful there. Carter has high-ranking friends. Last year, 2 agents who attempted to look into him were abruptly moved to Alaska. It buzzed on Emily's phone. Miguel texted. At the warehouse, there was movement. Tonight, a large shipment is arriving. I have to return, Emily said to Bennett. In an hour, the saloon will open. But you have to meet someone else first. Ray Henderson was at the helm of a dilapidated jeep that drew up as if on cue. The former U.S. Emily had been mentored by Marshall. She learned everything she knows about bounty hunting from this man. More significantly, he had spent months monitoring the Desert Viper's actions. Ray nodded as he walked up to Mike Bennett. Go over your file. Well done on the trafficking case in Texas. Bennett stood up straight. Ray Henderson. Your reputation comes before you. Emily cut the mutual appreciation short. Tell him what you discovered at the former copper mine, Ray. Ray took out his phone and displayed a number of pictures to Bennett. The abandoned mine tunnels are being used by them. The network extends to Mexico. Here's the intriguing bit, though. In addition to weaponry, they are moving something else. Something that's being kept apart from the delivery of weaponry. Bennett looked closely at the pictures. Trafficking in persons. That's what I guessed, Ray said. However, they are exercising caution and professionalism. These smugglers are not like the others. They all tensed at the sound of a car coming. It was only a truck on the highway, though. Nevertheless, the disruption reminded them that they had a limited amount of time. Emily said, I have something else. Clara is in charge of my saloon's kitchen. The warehouse employs her nephew. Stated that they are moving everything and cleaning out the entire area tonight. Bennett thought, they're speeding up their timetable. Why? Ray said that it's because they know we're watching. How did they find out, I wonder? The morning air was heavy with the implications. Someone must have spoken if the Desert Vipers were aware that they were being observed. Someone with federal intelligence access. I'll assemble a team, Bennett responded at last. However, obtaining authorization will take time. There's no time, Emily retorted. It takes place tonight, whatever they're moving. Ray cleared his throat. There may be an alternative. Do you recall Johnny's 2 visits to Flagstaff? I still owe you for that Tucson incident. Slowly, Emily nodded. All of Johnny's staff were previous operators who didn't ask many questions, even though he now operated a respectable security company. More significantly, they were adept at gathering evidence covertly. She instructed Ray to make the call, but to merely inform them of the observation. Before we act, we need conclusive evidence. Proof, huh? Bennett interrupted. In recent years, Carter has traveled frequently to Mexico. He says it's official business. Meeting to discuss cross-border collaboration with local law enforcement. Emily said, Los Lobos territory. Under the guise of genuine businesses, they are growing. The muscle comes from the Desert Vipers. Protection comes from dirty cops. Ray concluded, and everyone gets paid, traditional cartel activity. This time, though, something is different. They're being overly cautious and exact. Once more, Emily's phone buzzed. Miguel texted again. The sheriff is on his way to the saloon to find you. Emily remarked, I have to return, and started to head for her pickup. Get me as much information as you can about Blade's military experience, Bennett. Work with Johnny's people, Ray. Tonight, I want everybody to watch that warehouse. Emily's thoughts were racing with all the possible outcomes as she drove back toward Red Mesa. There was a reason why the Desert Vipers had selected her bar. Perhaps they were aware of her past. Perhaps they didn't. In any case, they had committed a critical error. They had set a target for her. When Emily arrived, Sheriff Carter's cruiser was parked in the vacant lot, but the saloon was still closed. She studied his car for a bit as she walked slowly to the door. Freshly cleaned tires, mud on the undercarriage. Recently, he had visited the warehouse district. She unlocked the door and greeted him, "Sheriff. You leave early." Carter stood by the bar in a purposefully relaxed stance. His clothing was immaculate, and his stance was well practiced. Everything about him shouted police. However, his eyes were calculating and chilly. As he saw her walk behind the bar, he continued, "Had some complaints. It looks like you had some issues last night with guests." "There was nothing I couldn't manage." Emily started her introductory routine with a neutral tone of speech. "Only a few motorcyclists seeking alcohol. According to Carter, Blade Pierce is a personal friend. Aids in community outreach initiatives. Genuine civic-minded person. These days, is that what they call it?" Carter's amiable exterior faltered a little. "Ms. Cooper, things are changing in Red Mesa. Astute people learn to adjust to changing conditions and change with them. I prefer things to be in their current state. The issue with foreigners is that." Carter stepped forward, his hand nonchalantly resting close to his firearm. "They don't recognize the delicate balance we've managed here, nor do they comprehend local customs." Every sense was on high alert, but Emily kept haunting the bar. "Sounds difficult. It is not need to be." After taking out an envelope, Carter set it on the bar. "The town is expanding. The value of real estate is rising. It'd be time to think about selling. Some of the investors I know would pay significantly more than market value." Emily left the envelope alone. "You can't buy the saloon." Carter's voice tightened, "Everything's for sale. In one way or another. Consider it, Ms. Cooper." With caution. Emily read the envelope after he had gone. There were pictures and video footage of her meeting with Bennett and Ray at the gas station less than an hour earlier, as well as a $500,000 check from the cashier. All along, they had been observing her. The Desert Viper's visit had not been a blowout. It had been put to the test. They were sending a message now. After taking out her phone, Emily called Ray. When he replied, she responded, "They know. We need to move more quickly on almost everything." Ray said, "I'm already on it. Johnny's team is in place. However, Emily. Take caution. Carter did not take those pictures. He's being supported by someone with significant resources." Emily looked over the surveillance photographs and replied, "Good. That indicates that a significant event is approaching. We're done playing defense, tell Bennett. Now is the time to resist. It took us a long time to prepare and tell this narrative. Please subscribe to our channel if you find it entertaining. It is really important to us. Let's return to the narrative." Like a thick blanket, night descended across Red Mesa, bringing with it the kind of gloom that was ideal for secrets. Standing on the roof of a shuttered textile factory, Emily had an unhindered view of the Desert Viper's warehouse. She counted 4 armed guards through her night vision binoculars, too many for a basic storage facility. Former Special Operations troops who walked through the industrial zone like shadows made up Johnny's 2-time security force, which had established a perimeter. Jake Sullivan, their leader, was crouching next to Emily, keeping an eye on radio communications. "Your intelligence was sound," he muttered. "A large shipment is anticipated. Lots of cars and strict security. It's big, whatever comes through here tonight." 3 dark SUVs arrived into the warehouse complex, and Emily shifted her attention. Blade is there, but who is he with? A man wearing a costly suit emerged from the first car with a military demeanor despite his casual attire. He was flanked by 4 bodyguards whose moves betrayed their expert training. Jake mentioned that it was the former Special Forces leader, Colonel James Morrison. He is officially the owner of a Phoenix-based private security company. Informally, he's employed by Los Lobos, Emily concluded. The cartels are attempting to justify their activities. Carlos, Clara's nephew, had set up shop close to the loading dock, ostensibly checking inventory but really taking notes on everything he saw. His texts were a constant flow of information. Emily read on her phone that they were taking out the entire weapons stash. Everything is being moved tonight. It has to do with federal attention. Jake stiffened abruptly. East Side movement. There are several cars coming. Emily watched a procession of vehicles enter the compound through her binoculars. The Desert Vipers used heavy-duty military transport vehicles instead of the typical panel vans. The sort that's utilized to move heavy equipment. Vehicles from the sheriff's office are obstructing side roadways. Over the radio, one of Jake's men reported. A corridor that runs directly through the town is being secured. It buzzed on Emily's phone. Carlos sent another message. Something is being loaded from the safe room. Military markings, heavy containers. They are discussing a Mexican buyer. Emily stated as she started to move, "We need to see what's in those crates. Can your people divert attention, Jake? Let's have 2 minutes." Emily stayed in the darkness and moved down the fire escape. She had learned how to blend in with the darkness and travel undetected from years of bounty hunting. She arrived at ground level as the night sky was illuminated by the first explosion. 2 blocks away, Jake's group had set up a sequence of controlled explosions in an empty lot. It had an instant impact. Blade shouted commands into a radio as half the guards went to look into it. Emily took advantage of the turmoil to get past their perimeter. She arrived at the loading dock as Carlos, with a pale face, came out from behind a pile of crates. He said, "Military-grade weapons. However, there's more. They have folks locked up in the secure room. Women and kids." A shout came from the warehouse before Emily could answer. They were noticed by one of the guards. Emily shoved Carlos in the direction of the door. "Proceed." Emily dived behind a forklift as gunfire broke out. With the help of their muzzle flashes, she was able to determine the positions of 3 or possibly 4 shooters. Amateur maneuver. Jake's voice burst over her headset, "We've got company. Multiple vehicles and police units are approaching from the south." After years of preparation, Emily pulled out her pistol. The closest overhead light was extinguished by her initial shot, leaving a portion of the warehouse in complete darkness. Her second placed a guard down without killing him after finding his leg. "Spot the target," yelled one of the guards. "By the loading dock." Near Emily's head, a bullet splintered off the concrete. These were no your typical motorcyclists. Their firing was too accurate and well coordinated. Military instruction. She could hear Jake organizing his team's response over her earpiece. She had to move quickly as they set up the extraction path. More gunfire rang out, and Emily rolled to fresh cover. She saw glimmers of what they were attempting to safeguard amongst the confusion. Trafficking organizations use shipping containers that have been altered for the purpose of transporting people. "Get out of there, Emily." Through her headset, Jake's anxious voice could be heard. "Carter has just summoned SWAT. This is a cleanup effort, they are not there to make any arrests." She had only a few seconds to decide. She needed the evidence right here, but remaining would put her at risk of being caught or worse. The decision was made for her by a volley of automatic fire. These were no longer warning shots. Using her survival skills from 15 years of tracking hazardous fugitives, Emily moved quickly. Another pair of guards fell. Non-lethal shots that would prevent them from fighting without making her feel guilty. When Blade himself emerged, his scarred face twisted in a sneer, she was nearly visible. If she hadn't been expecting it, she would have been killed by his first shot, falling and rolling as his bullet went through where she had been standing. He growled and moved forward, saying, "I knew there was something off about you. Ought to have looked at your background more thoroughly." Emily shot out the final overhead light after saying, "You still should have stayed out of my town." She was already moving in the dark. Blade fired twice more, but she was in a different place. He spun around as she hit him in the shoulder with her subsequent shot. Jake's squad arrived in an unmarked van as Emily arrived at the extraction spot. When the SWAT team showed there, their sirens blaring through the darkness, they were 3 blocks distant. As they drove, Jake said, "We got pictures of everything. Enough security posts, cargo containers, and weapons to demonstrate that they are operating a significant trafficking enterprise." Gloomily, Emily remarked, "Won't matter. By now, all incriminating evidence has been removed. Carter will ensure that the area is tidy." Jake agreed, perhaps, but Carlos was able to record the entire event, including Colonel Morrison's attendance. It will be more difficult to convey that. It buzzed on Emily's phone. Ray Henderson texted. "At the border, Bennett is moving. There are several cars moving south. They are no longer even attempting to conceal whatever it is they are hauling." Emily noticed that they were speeding up their time frame. It was more than simply a product move tonight. They are preparing for something more significant. Jake gave her a quick look. "What should we do next?" Emily's thoughts was already 3 steps ahead as she checked her firearm. "They believe they have frightened us away. Now let's demonstrate why that was a mistake. Bring me over to Ray's house. Bennett needs to be consulted." Emily reflected on the people and children Carlos had seen as they drove through Red Mesa's shadowy streets. Weapons were no longer the only issue here. Her people were in danger because the Desert Vipers and their cartel backers had taken their poison into her village. They were going to find out why Emily Cooper had been 3 states' most successful bounty hunter. Sometimes the predator you didn't see approaching until it was too late was the most dangerous. 5 miles outside of Red Mesa was the ranch home of Ray Henderson. Its worn walls conceal a very advanced surveillance facility in the basement. Connecting faces to identities and tracing money and weapons via a convoluted web of corruption, Emily examined the evidence board they had put together. Bennett scattered paperwork across the table and remarked, "These shipping manifestos don't make sense. More equipment is being moved by the Desert Vipers than a tiny army could require. Communication devices, military-grade weapons, and even armor for vehicles. Because it's not just for them," Ray said, pointing to a cartel territory map. "They serve as a distribution center. Los Lobos is assembling an army by arming all 3 states' crime organizations." Emily used our community as a staging area as she mapped out a path from Mexico through Red Mesa. "They wanted my bar for that reason. It's ideal for tracking shipments and money laundering." With a worried expression on her face, Clara rushed down the stairs as the basement door opened. "Tonight is their meeting. Each and every one. Sheriff Carter, Blade, and even a few members of the town council." "Where?" Bennett made a demand. "The former hunting lodge on the outskirts. There, my cousin works as a cleaner, and she heard them hatching plans. There's more, though. A Mexican woman is on her way. They refer to her as Lorena." Bennett and Emily looked at each other. One of the most violent members of the Los Lobos cartel, Isabella Ortiz, was known by the nickname Lorena, the Queen. A former intelligence officer became a lieutenant in a cartel. Corruption of law enforcement was her specialty. Emily understood that this went beyond weaponry. They are establishing enterprises, municipal government, police, and infrastructure. The entire town is being overrun by them. Everyone grabbed their guns when they heard a knock at the upper door. However, Detective Lisa Martinez was captured on Ray's security cameras. 6 months after the rookie detectives moved to Red Mesa, Emily had observed her inquiring about specific police procedures. Emily told Ray to let her in. She has been looking into Carter on her own and is clean. With keen eyes, Lisa scanned the assembled gathering as she came down the stairs. It appears that I'm not the only person who has observed an issue in Red Mesa. She showed them pictures from her phone. Last month, 4 new officials were brought on board, all of whom had ties to departments that were being investigated for wrongdoing. And she supplied a document for this. A new civil asset forfeiture policy, which Carter has been advocating for, would allow the agency to seize property with little supervision. Bennett said it was the ideal instrument for evicting difficult business owners. There's another thing, Lisa added. Carter maintained a flawless record up to 2019 while working for the Border Patrol prior to Red Mesa. He was placed on administrative leave for 6 months after something happened, but it's classified. He returned with an unexpected amount of money, which he used to buy the ranch, new automobiles, and private school for his children. Emily looked over the chronology they had put together. At that point, Los Lobos began to go northward. They did more than simply buy him off. Something significant enough to corrupt a good police officer is on him. One of Ray's security cameras alerted him with a beep on his PC. There was a procession of cars on their way to the lodge. They saw Blade and his inner circle approach through the blurry video, followed by Carter and a number of police cars. Emily turned to the investigator, Martinez. How many decent police officers remain in the department? 6, perhaps. They will assist if someone takes the initiative, but most are too afraid to take action. Bennett looked at his gun. My squad is still out for 12 hours. We're on the move. We're alone. We're alone all the time. Emily answered. She already had a plan in mind. Prepare your folks, Lisa. We'll need them to safeguard witnesses and gather evidence when this breaks. Lorena, what about her? Ray inquired. She always has serious backup when she travels. Emily took out a custom rifle she hadn't handled in 3 years and walked to a gun safe concealed behind a fake wall. Let me worry about her. We need to know everything your cousin is aware of regarding that lodge, Clara. Evacuation routes, security, and layouts. Emily reflected on the ladies and children she had seen at the warehouse as Clara went over the building specifications. This was no longer only about catching criminals. The goal was to save her village. She informed the group that they expected us to be quiet following the warehouse. We'll probably wait for federal support. Rather, we're planning to strike them during their meeting tonight. That's suicide, said Lisa. The location will be completely secured. No, Emily easily examined the sight on her weapon. It's fairness. All of the big players in one place, together with proof of their whole business. We do this correctly. Tonight, we can put an end to it all. Bennett looked at her for a while. You have a strategy. Do it always. Ray gave Johnny a call. Inform him that we need his crew for one more procedure. Get your dependable officers in place, Lisa, but hold them back until I give the all clear. Clara. Clara concluded, I'll speak with the business owners. Tell them it's time to get up. The specifics were laid out by Emily, and everything came together like a well-oiled machine. As a bounty hunter, she had conducted similar operations numerous times. Determine the target, set the trap, and then precisely execute. However, while they were completing the arrangements, a message from an unidentified number buzzed through her phone. Her saloon's interior was captured in the accompanying photo, which was taken lately. Lorena's calling card, the Queen of Spades, was the only playing card on the bar. It was an obvious message. They didn't know everything, but they knew she was coming. They believed they were interacting with a former bounty hunter who followed the law. They were unaware that Emily Cooper had discovered long ago that sometimes you have to become into a predator in order to catch one. And the hunts were going to become the hunted tonight. Warm light glowed through the windows of the hunting lodge, which stood out against the starry sky, despite the darkness that was encroaching within. After years of following fugitives, Emily learned to blend in with the shadows and walk through the surrounding forest like a ghost. 12 guards, a combination of professional security and desert vipers, were visible through her scope. Through her headset, Johnny's voice murmured, "Team 1 in position." Without being noticed, his soldiers had created a cordon that blocked off escape routes. Lisa Martinez, who works with the trusted cops, affirmed that Team 2 is prepared. They were waiting for the operation to begin, holding back. Emily saw a second SUV pull up, this one with Mexican license plates. Four tactically equipped men appeared and positioned themselves defensively. Then she noticed Isabella Lorena Ortiz leaving with the poised assurance of someone who had never experienced defeat. Emily murmured, "Target verified. Bring up the thermal imaging, Lorena is here." The comm crackled with Ray's voice. "It appears that they are assembling for a presentation because there are 23 heat signatures within the main area." Emily saw glimpses of laptops being set up, a projector screen, and windows through her scope. This was a demonstration, not only a meeting. Johnny said there was movement at the south entrance. Sheriff Carter and Blade have just arrived with briefcases. Emily shifted into a more advantageous posture. As you might expect from someone who was once in the military, the security pattern was professional yet predictable, meaning they had flaws and blind spots. "What has your contact inside said, Lisa?" "They're looking over plans for expansion," the detective said. "They intend to employ the police department as their private security squad and take over the entire county, not just Red Mesa." Emily's attention was drawn to a sudden flurry of radio talk from the guards. Using cartel code she had learned from earlier missions, they were conversing in Spanish. "We have another player," she said. "El Arquitecto, the architect, is the person they are anticipating." From his place at the command center, Bennett's voice interrupted. "That's Los Lobos' strategic operations, which are currently led by former Mexican intelligence officer Raul Mendoza. This is more serious than we initially believed if he is involved." Emily observed how the expert security moved to conceal Lorena as she entered the resort. They were in a tight, orderly configuration. These bodyguards weren't your typical ones. She recognized them as Grupo Alpha. Special troops from Mexico that became private. The finest of the greatest. "How can you tell?" inquired Lisa. "The space, the way they move. 2 years ago, I went hunting with one of their previous leaders and became familiar with their tendencies." Emily could see the presentation beginning inside through her scope. Documents, charts, and blueprints all point to something enormous. Is Bennett understanding this? Appearing clearly. Emily said, "They're not just occupying Red Mesa, they're setting up a permanent base of operations, using the Desert Vipers to manage their distribution network, the police department for protection, and local businesses for money laundering." Ideal configuration. Her attention was drawn to an unexpected movement. The perimeter was being systematically checked by one of Lorena's guards, whose pattern brought him perilously close to Johnny's position. Emily cautioned, "Team 1, hold position. Let him go." The guard approached Johnny's hiding place within a few feet, stopped, and then walked on. Unaware that she was holding a breath, Emily let it out. Clara's voice reached Emily over the comm. "I recently received a message from my cousin. In order to establish a secure communication hub in the basement, they are bringing in servers." Bennett understood the concept of command and control. Not only are they growing, but they are also establishing their primary U.S. operations center in Red Mesa. Emily used her scope to observe Sheriff Carter. The man was anxious and kept looking at his phone. Lorena must have had something important on him. "Are your people prepared, Lisa?" "Emily, I just received information from my contact that there is something else going on, notwithstanding your signal. They're finalizing plans, not merely examining them." "This evening." "For what length of time?" "Maybe an hour. On paper at least, the takeover is lawful once those documents are executed." After processing this knowledge, Emily modified her approach. Time would be of the essence, but they had to move quickly. The entire operation would fail with a single error. She saw Lorena start her presentation through her scope. With the assurance of someone who had never failed or lost control, the woman moved. That was about to change. Emily commanded all teams to hold their positions. "Await my signal. We move quickly when we do. Without hesitation. No errors." "What causes it?" Johnny inquired. Emily observed the distant approach of El Arquitecto's vehicle, her finger delicately resting on the trigger of her weapon. "We gave them permission to begin the meeting. Give them the impression that they are in charge. Then." And then Lisa asked. "We next demonstrate to them why taking your cartel operation to a town guarded by a person who makes a livelihood hunting predators is not a good idea." A guard went straight through her crosshairs as if to punctuate her statements. 1 second, 1 shot. She could put a stop to this now. However, that was not the intention. Arrests were not enough for them. They required the connections, the proof, and the complete network. Emily recognized the fear concealed beneath Sheriff Carter's professional grin as she watched Lorena shake hands with him through her scope. The cartel was going to lose whatever game it was playing. Because Emily Cooper hadn't learned one important lesson in her 15 years of hunting down the greatest offenders in 3 states. The predator that flashes its teeth isn't the most dangerous. It is the one that patiently and unseemly waits for the ideal opportunity to strike in the shadows. The ambience of the hunting lodge changed with the advent of El Arquitecto. Raul Mendoza moved with the methodical dexterity of someone who meticulously prepared each movement, word, and stride. Lorena's Grupo Alpha crew and his security detail worked together well. Their synchronization speaks to their many previous operations together. Emily spoke into her comm. "Target is inside. What's the perimeter situation, Johnny?" "The guard rotation has been doubled. These guys are adept at coordinating communication checks and utilizing overlapping areas of view." Emily observed through her scope as Mendoza politely greeted Lorena. The true balance of power was evident. He planned the actions, but she might provide commands. "Your folks in position, Lisa?" "Confirming." The investigator spoke in a firm tone. 6 dependable officers are prepared to go. However, there is activity at the station, Emily. Tonight, Carter summoned his corrupt units for a special assignment. Emily's thoughts were racing, changing the plan. Their escape routes are being secured. Bennett? The FBI agent verified that they were keeping an eye on police lines. Under the guise of a terrorist threat, they are erecting checkpoints on all important roadways leading out of town. Emily captured snippets of the gathering via the lodge's windows with her scope. Mendoza was in charge. He showed his presentation on several screens. Logistics networks, security systems, and architectural blueprints all indicate something enormous in scope. Emily called softly, "Clara. What's inside, your cousin?" Servers and military-grade communication equipment are being installed. However, there's more. They have access to government networks and police databases. There's more to their plans than merely keeping Red Mesa under control. Emily moved around to have a better view of the main room. Now, including guards, the thermal imaging revealed 28 heat signatures. Every individual served as a puzzle piece. Corrupt police officers, cartel leaders, and compromised public servants. Do you understand, Bennett? Very clear. They're not merely establishing a distribution center. They are building a shadow infrastructure and obtaining intelligence on federal investigations while protecting their operation with law enforcement. Emily took notice of movement at the edge. A Grupo Alpha operator was using a thermal scanner to systematically sweep the tree line. She commanded all teams to go dark. Heat sweeps are what they are doing. As the guard passed their stations, the communications were silent during difficult periods. Knowing that their entire mission depended on it, Emily held her breath. At last, Johnny murmured, "Clear." However, they are becoming wary. They're feeling uneasy about something. Mendoza's exposition reached its climax within the lodge. Emily could see the responses through her scope. Carter's anxiety was scarcely disguised. Lorena's icy contentment. The predatory anticipation of Blade. Lisa's voice was urgent. "Emily. I just received a message from my contact. They are using more than simply police databases. The department's digital infrastructure is being totally overtaken by them. They will have complete control once those servers are up and running. Case files, personnel records, and evidence logs." Bennett said, "Perfect cover for their operation. They have the power to remove evidence, reroute inquiries, and even fabricate accusations against anyone who disagrees with them." Mendoza pointed to something on the screen, and Emily watched. Plans for what appeared to be a huge property. She understood it was more than simply a warehouse. Red Mesa is the starting point for a larger project, and they are constructing a castle. "Emily." Clara broke the connection with an urgent whisper. "My cousin just caught sight of something. Someone is being brought in. A prisoner." Emily observed through her scope as two Grupo Alpha operators led a man into the basement of the lodge. She recognized him even at this distance. DEA agent Torres, who disappeared 2 weeks ago while looking into cartel activity. Bennett remarked coldly, "They're going to make an example of him. Demonstrate the consequences for federal officers who approach too closely." Emily's finger gripped the trigger of her weapon a little tighter. It may all begin now with a single shot. However, timing was crucial. "Prepare your people to move, Lisa. Get ready for Phase 1, Johnny. Tell your cousin to go right away, Clara. It's going to get complicated." "What is the play about?" Bennett inquired. Using her scope, Emily followed the movements of another guard, observing a pattern. They weren't merely security personnel. On American territory, this was a military operation. "They believe they have prepared for everything," she remarked softly. "Ready for anything that might happen. However, they've made a crucial error." "What is that?" Lisa inquired. Emily answered, "They still believe they are the predators," observing Lorena shaking hands with a local council member who was obviously anxious. "It's time to show them what being hunted feels like." Emily saw Mendoza bring up another image via her scope. Satellite images of important sites in the southwest. The scope of their activity exceeded everyone's expectations. However, that just increased its susceptibility. She gave the command for all teams to complete Phase 1 on my mark. She spoke with the quiet authority that had made her a bounty hunt legend. "Keep in mind that we are no longer only fighting for Red Mesa. Tonight is the last day of this." The guards outside became more vigilant, their motions more forceful, as though they could sense the storm coming. However, they sought a direct encounter, a frontal assault. The hunting style of Emily Cooper caught them off guard. The predator who quietly waited in the dark, watching its victim become complacent and confident in their purported safety, was sometimes the deadliest. The quest was going to start. The hunts would turn into the prey by daybreak. The first phase started with darkness. The entire property briefly went dark when Johnny's team activated the lodge's circuit breakers in response to Emily's signal. It would only take a few seconds for the backup generators to start, but that was all they needed. Emily muttered that she was on her way, already making progress along her prearranged path. Johnny's group began their planned diversion around the perimeter, causing mayhem at the north entrance with many flashbangs and smoke bombs. Though they were up against shadows, the Grupo Alpha operators responded with expert accuracy. As Emily had expected, she saw them deploy in a classic counter-assault posture through her night vision. "East side clear," said Johnny. "They're reacting just as expected." Emily arrived at the maintenance gate that Clara's cousin had pointed out as her first goal. In seconds, the lock gave way to her specialist tools. She could hear Lorena shouting commands in quick Spanish above the hubbub. Status, Lisa. As you predicted, the detective reported that 2 dishonest units were responding to the north gate, leaving the south access vulnerable. After years of hunting fugitives, Emily learned to blend in with the shadows and walked through the lodge's bottom level like a ghost. Ahead was the server room in the basement, which was manned by 2 Grupo Alpha operators. Are you watching Mendoza, Bennett? The FBI agent confirmed that he is still in the main room, but he is heading toward the secure communications center. He is concerned about safeguarding whatever is on those servers. Emily arrived at the corner by the server room in time to hear fresh orders on the guard's radio. One went to look into a sound. Another distraction is being created by Johnny's team. With a tight chokehold and no sound, the remaining guard failed to see Emily approaching. She slipped inside and murmured, "Server room secure. Please connect me to your relative, Clara. I must know where Agent Torres is being held." "West Side storage room," Clara said. "However, Emily, they have a dead man switch or something attached to him." Emily plugged Bennett's customized drive into the closest computer terminal, her fingers gliding over the keyboard. The entire digital infrastructure of the cartel would now be accessible remotely by the FBI's cyber team. Lisa's anxious voice broke through the calm, "Emily. We have an issue. They were informed about my undercover operatives by someone. They are on their way to intercept." Emily said, "Get your folks out. We can no longer contain this. Do phase 2, Johnny. Turn it on." Several blasts shook the border of the complex outside. This time, there were deliberate charges that cut off the lodge's communication channels and caused true chaos, not flashbangs. Emily encountered 2 additional guards on her way to the storage area. Before she could get to him, the second was able to activate his radio, but the first was taken down in silence. "Basement-level intrusion," he yelled in Spanish. "Time's up," Emily said. "Every team launches a full-scale attack. Move your people in, Lisa. Give them hell, Johnny." Controlled violence erupted throughout the night. While Lisa's trusted police advanced from several angles, Johnny's team kept the perimeter guards pinned with accurate fire. Heavy footsteps clattered down the stairs as Emily arrived at the storage room door. Lorena's voice was audible. She was personally in charge of organizing the defense. "Track her down. Ordered by the lieutenant of the cartel. Tonight is Cooper's death." Emily froze for a second. They were aware of her identity. However, how? Agent Torres was strapped to a chair when the storage room door gave way to her lockpicks. The switch used by the deceased was simple yet efficient. The building was filled with explosives that would detonate if anyone tried to move him. Torres fought through swollen lips, "Took you long enough." "There was bad traffic," Emily said. Examining the mechanism of the switch. "Do you want to know how they anticipated my arrival?" A fresh voice said from the doorway, "Because I told them." Lorena herself was standing there, accompanied by 4 Grupo Alpha operators, when Emily turned around. The chilly professionalism in her eyes stood in stark contrast to the cartel lieutenant's exquisite appearance. Lorena smiled at Emily Cooper. "The well-known shadowhunter. I've been looking forward to seeing you for a while. Have we already met? You killed my brother 3 years ago, though not directly. Rafael Ortiz, also known as the Ghost of Sonora, according to your media." Emily recalled. Before she retired, Rafael had been her final capture. An assassin from a cartel who killed dozens of people. "He decided to shoot instead of give up," Emily said calmly. "And you shot him in the chest 3 times. Lorena's smile remained constant. "Perfect grouping," the autopsy said. "Extremely competent." The combat was still raging outside. Emily could hear Johnny's team advancing through her earpiece. "Lisa's officers are conducting gunfights with dishonest police officers. You've caused us a lot of trouble," Lorena added. This was supposed to be a political, covert operation. We will now have to learn the hard way. Taking over a community in America is not a subtle act. American? Lorena chuckled. We already have this town. Has been months. 6 years ago, Sheriff Carter traded his soul to ensure that. Are you curious about the actual events that transpired during his tenure with the Border Patrol? Emily's thoughts were racing, figuring out angles, possibilities, and ways out. Lorena plus 4 operators. They were all aiming their firearms at her. Torres was still connected to the deceased man's switch. Additionally, Mendoza was probably destroying evidence someplace above. Bennett's voice murmured in Emily's ear. The server data is in our possession. Do whatever it is you're going to do quickly. Emily's look must have conveyed something to Lorena. She lifted her pistol and her smile grew. Farewell, Ms. Cooper. Think of this as my brother's payment. However, being predictable was not how Emily Cooper had survived 15 years of seeking the most dangerous fugitives in 3 states. Emily was already in motion when Lorena's finger tightened on the trigger. The hunt was far from ended. It was only about to reach its most perilous stage. Emily moved in a haze of premeditated aggression. Emily was already rolling behind Torres's chair, utilizing its metal frame as a makeshift cover, when Lorena's bullet went through where she had been standing. One of the Group O Alpha operatives was promptly taken out when her first return shot struck him in the knee. Very impressive, Lorena exclaimed, ducking under the door. However, you and we are confined down here. No, said Emily, already putting her backup plan into action. Above them, Johnny's squad expertly and precisely broke through the main level, trapping you down here with me. As Emily's well-planned attack played out, the lodge echoed with the sound of tactical combat. Through the comm, Johnny reported that all teams were convergent. Mendoza and his security detail are besieged in the command center. The remaining operators were forced to seek cover after Emily shot twice more. These were not your typical cartel shooters. Their actions demonstrated a high level of special forces training. However, Emily hadn't fought fairly to gain her reputation. Do you honestly believe that this makes a difference? Lorena made fun of it. Red Mesa is merely a component of a much bigger enterprise. Everywhere we look, we have people. Military, government, and police. Torres murmured frantically, Emily. The dead man's switch. It has more than merely to do with explosives. They have a backup plan. Files are made public if they are harmed, revealing all of the dishonest officials in 3 states. Emily was pushed farther under cover by a volley of automatic fire. She could hear Lorena using quick Spanish to coordinate with her soldiers in preparation for a planned attack. You understand that, Bennett? The FBI agent answered, I'm already on it. The failsafe system is being traced by cyber teams. But we have another issue, Emily. Police channels that were just intercepted. Carter is organizing all of the county's dishonest police officers. They're on their way to you. Emily looked at her ammunition. She had her backup piece and 2 mags left. Insufficient for an extended firefight. Status, Lisa. The detective reported in between bursts of gunfire while battling corrupt units near the freeway. They want to block off your escape routes and create a perimeter. Lorena's laughter reverberated across the space. See. Everything is in order. Every possible scenario was prepared. You were underestimated by my brother. I'm not going to make the same error. Emily said, funny thing about plans, as she reached into her tactical vest for a tiny gadget. Seldom do they make it through initial contact. Bennett's team had supplied a specific EMP, which she activated. Every system, including the dead man's switch, crashed, and the lights in the basement flickered and died. Emily shifted at once. Operating in the dark for years takes over. An operator attempting to adjust to night vision was captured in her first shot. As he raised his weapon, her second found another shoulder. Emily's backup radio picked up Johnny's anxious voice. Blades with reinforcements are approaching your position. Many of them. Emily was already moving when Lorena fired recklessly into the darkness. Cooper, you can't win this. The failsafe is already compromised, even if you manage to take us down. Emily interrupted her. Right now, your whole digital network is being taken down. But you're not truly afraid of it, are you? So, a moment of silence. What are you discussing? Sheriff Carter had a spotless record with the Border Patrol 6 years ago. Then something took place. It was large enough to turn him. However, money wasn't the only factor, was it? As the remaining operatives attempted to flank Emily's position, more gunfire broke out. Now, though, she could hear the hesitancy in their movements. Her element was the darkness. Cooper, you're playing a risky game. There was concern in Lorena's voice. Emily called through her comm, Martinez. The Carter administrative leave file you discovered. Before that, what happened? A big cartel bust went wrong, Lisa said. The entire enterprise was compromised. However, the documents are sealed. Since it wasn't simply compromised, Emily kept piecing it together. It was a prelude. Carter remained clean. From the beginning, he was filthy. All the time working for Los Lobos. It was confirmed by Lorena's sudden intake of air. How did you? Because I was also hunting at the time. Rafael was more than simply your sibling. He was the head of intelligence for Los Lobos. The person who hired dishonest officials. Carter included. Emily saw Lorena's poise falter a little in her night vision. This amount of information was unexpected by the cartel lieutenant. Bennett interrupted Emily. Cyber teams understood. The proof against Carter is the failsafe system. Everything. All set to proceed with your order. However, fresh gunfire broke out from the stairway before Emily could react. Blade's voice was audible. Room by room. Locate the Fed and Cooper. Nobody survives. Lorena yelled, time's up. It appears that you have already made your decision. Emily assessed her location and determined her alternatives and angles. The men of Blade were approaching. Fields of fire still overlapped for Lorena's operators. Additionally, Mendoza was probably carrying out his own endgame somewhere above. However, Emily Cooper hadn't made it this far by following other people's rules. She was ready to remind everyone why she had been the most dreaded bounty hunter in 3 states as Blade's men launched their attack. The actual hunt was only getting started. The hunting lodge's basement had turned into a battlefield. Emily glided deadly gracefully through the shadows. She took advantage of the confusion caused by the two-sided attack. While Lorena's operators attempted to keep tactical discipline, Blade's troops were shooting at anything that moved. Cooper. The sound of Blade's voice reverberated through the hallways. Simply put, you're making things worse for yourself. The entire building is encircled. Another Group O Alpha operator was felled by Emily's 2 accurate rounds. Effective but non-lethal. Bennett's voice carried critical news in her ear. The files of Emily Mendoza have been decrypted. Taking over Red Mesa isn't the only goal. In 12 additional towns around the southwestern region, they are establishing comparable operations. Establishing a system of regulated areas. A shadow empire, said Emily quietly. Blade's men raced past where she had been, and she moved to a new spot. Using their private army of dishonest police enforcement. Through the darkness, Lorena's chuckle could be heard. Cooper, finally working it out. This has nothing to do with firearms or narcotics. Those are only sources of funding. We're constructing something more substantial. Something long-lasting. Emily was driven into cover by a volley of gunfire. She counted at least 8 of Blade's guys in her night vision. Plus the other operators in Group O Alpha. Agent Torres was still attempting to escape his bonds somewhere in the midst of the confusion. Emily. Through the silence came Johnny's anxious voice. In the attic of the lodge, we discovered something. Military-grade communication devices connected to comparable installations throughout the state. They are constructing an infrastructure in simultaneously. Manage the police. Take control of the territory, Emily thought. To keep Blade's soldiers back, he fired twice. And everyone who doesn't want to. Lorena concluded, gets handled by our new law enforcement partners, similar to what is going to happen to Detective Martinez, your friend. Emily's heart froze. Report, Lisa. A little busy. Between shots, the detective's voice could be heard. Half the corrupt army was present when Carter arrived. They're attempting to confine us. Referring to it as a response to terrorism. Emily's thoughts were racing, weighing her possibilities. The basement has turned into a murderous place. However, the evidence Mendoza was defending was still necessary. Lisa's squad was now in jeopardy. Transfer the files to your backup servers, Bennett. How is the tunnel entrance progressing, Clara? All right, Clara said. However, my cousin Emily recently sent a message. Mendoza is turning on a program known as Protocol Shadow. A scorched earth scheme of some sort. New blasts shook the lodge's foundation as if on cue. From pre-placed charges, not from the fighting. They were demolishing the structure. Emily said, all teams, fall back. The structure is collapsing. Lorena called out, but it was too late. Everything about this place is rigged. Orders from Mendoza. No witnesses, no proof. Cooper, you ought to have accepted my initial offer. Emily fired once more, catching Blade's man in the shoulder as he attempted to move forward. However, she was out of options and ammunition. Torres shouted out from the shadows, Emily. The command center's servers are more than just places to communicate. They are in charge of something larger. A multi-jurisdictional automated system of some sort. Bennett? The FBI agent acknowledged that he was correct. These aren't only servers for data. They serve as command and control centers for a large-scale project. Emergency services, utility grids, and traffic systems. Emily recognized it was a kill switch. Take control of the territory and the infrastructure. They can shut down entire villages with a single button. The building trembled with further explosions. Emily could hear Johnny's crew fighting ferociously as they attempted to extricate through the communications. Cooper. Now Blade's voice was nearer. There is nowhere else for you to flee. The entire place is collapsing. Emily looked at her ammunition. She had her backup piece and 1 magazine remaining. Insufficient for a straight battle. However, she wasn't into straight fighting. Get your people out of the building, Lisa. Work with Bennett's staff, Johnny. I want all of the data they discovered on those systems to be protected. Tell your cousin to go right away, Clara. How about you? Bennett made a demand. The tone of Emily's speech was icy. For their crimes, Lorena and Mendoza still have to account. Nor am I going anywhere without Torres. So noble, Lorena mocked. Like the last moments of my brother. He also believed that he was untouchable. Emily, however, was already on the move. Carrying out a strategy that had been developing since the initial explosion. Chasing was not always the ideal method of hunting. It was done to give the impression that you were cornered by the prey. She shouted, her voice resonating through the confusion, you're right about one thing. Tonight is the last day of this. But not in the manner you had intended. Emily Cooper was ready to remind everyone why she had been the most successful bounty hunter in 3 states as the building continued to tremble. Her trap had been set by the prey. They simply weren't aware of it yet. The force of several explosions caused the hunting lodge to moan. However, Emily Cooper made a definite move. She had been methodically herding them to the precise location she desired, even though Lorena and Blade believed the why had her cornered. Bennett used the comm to warn that the structure will collapse in 3 minutes. Do whatever you're planned quickly. Emily fired twice more, forcing Blade's soldiers to go in a certain direction while purposefully missing them. The basement was now a smoke and debris labyrinth. However, she had committed every angle and corner to memory. You are just delaying the inevitable, Lorena yelled. The entire structure is collapsing. Emily answered, her voice resonating from several directions, you still don't get it. Examine your surroundings. Take a peek. Are you noticing any oddities in those support beams? There was a pause, and then Emily heard Lorena take a sharp breath. It had finally dawned on the cartel lieutenant. There was more to the explosive charges than chance. They were positioned to produce a certain pattern of collapse. The entire basement level, answered Lorena slowly. You're enclosing us and channeling the fall. Give the woman a prize, Emily said. You believed that I was being trapped. Since I arrived here, I have been putting this together. Emily saw the knowledge dawn on them through her night vision. They had been pushed toward the middle of her trap by every shot she had fired and every motion she had made. The rest would now be done by the weight of the edifice itself. Johnny reported hurriedly, Emily. Mendoza is attempting an action. He has a portable drive of some sort and is on his way to the command center. Let him, Emily said. Bennett? The FBI agent said, you got it. Does he have that drive? It is not uploading to his servers, but to ours. Every bit of information, every link, and every dishonest official in their network. The structure was rocked by another explosion, but this one was unique. Calculated. Just as Emily had intended, the support beams started to creak. You're insane, Blade yelled. You're going to bring us all down with you. No, Emily clarified. Just in this area. The area where everyone is standing. Emily was already on the move, but Lorena fired blindly into the darkness. You're playing a bluff. Torres will never be able to leave in time. Who says I have to? Emily gave the shadows behind Lorena a nod. It's been 5 minutes since he was released. Torres stepped out of the darkness, still very much alive but moving with the rigidity of his wounds. The dead man's switch, like everything else in your operation, was a phony. Clara's voice broke the silence, Emily. Detective Martinez just came in. Carter is surrounded at the station. It's too late, but he's attempting to destroy the proof. The last part of Emily's trap started, and the structure trembled once again. The planned failure of the support beams was causing a controlled collapse that would have sealed off this portion of the basement, trapping Lorena and her operatives inside. It's over, said Emily. Your network is vulnerable. The FBI has your evidence, and you will be buried behind enough debris in roughly 30 seconds to keep you alive until help arrives. Lorena growled, you're forgetting something. The kill switch is still in Mendoza's possession. Every vital system in 12 towns falls down with a single command. Police communication, emergency services, everything. Bennett interrupted about that. Do you recall the servers we accessed? As it happens, they were reciprocal. Our kill switch simply changed from yours. With a thunderclap, the last support beam broke. Emily took hold of Torres and shoved him in the direction of the exit she had set up. Blade yelled, you can't do this, with genuine horror now in his voice. One of the nice guys should be you. I am, Emily said icily. I made sure the collapse wouldn't harm anyone because of this. However, it will keep you waiting for federal agents to show up. Take it as a citizen's arrest. As Emily and Torres left the danger area, the ceiling started to collapse. She heard Lorena scream in rage behind them as she and her men were imprisoned in a makeshift prison made of heaps of trash. As they stepped out into the night air, Emily gave the order for all squads to report. According to Johnny, the main floor is secure. Mendoza is being held. The security detail resisted. A huge error. Lisa added, police station secured. Carter is in cells with his crooked cops. The law-abiding police officers are back in charge. According to Bennett, FBI teams are 10 minutes away. You succeeded, Emily. Everything we need to take down their entire organization, including the full network and the supporting documentation. However, Emily was already heading in the direction of her next victim. Not all of it. One more piece is needed. Emily. Bennett's tone was worried. What are you contemplating? Emily saw a car driving away from the lodge through her scope. An operator from Lorena's Grupo Alpha who had managed to escape the fall. The person with the actual kill switch. One thing Lorena was correct about. Emily looked at the magazine of her weapon. Tonight is the last day of this. Everything. The hunt was far from ended. There was still the largest prey out there. Emily Cooper was only beginning her career. Engines roared through the desert darkness as Emily followed the Grupo Alpha operator who was running away. With experienced ease, her truck navigated the rugged terrain. She knows every back road and cattle trail in 3 states from years of hunting fugitives. Aims toward the southeast. From his position of surveillance, Johnny reported. He seemed to be heading for the former mining facility. Emily could hear what was going on in Red Mesa through her comm. Detective Martinez is in charge of organizing the police station's cleanliness. Evidence is being secured by Bennett's staff. The townspeople who had finally made the decision to oppose the cartel were organized by Clara. Bennett's voice was urgent, Emily. In Mendoza's files, we discovered something. You're after that operator. He is more than security. He is their IT expert. Vega Carlos. Former cyber warfare unit in Mexico. Emily applied more pressure to the accelerator. The distance was being eaten up by her truck. In the moonlight, she could see the Grupo Alpha vehicle ahead, churning up clouds of dust. She understood that the kill switch is more than a computer. It's him. His knowledge. His codes of access. Exactly, Bennett said. Only he has the ability to put their fail-safe procedures into action. With a few keystrokes, take down the entire town's infrastructure. The pursuit took them farther into mining country, where eerie shadows were formed by abandoned machinery. Emily knew the landscape. She had previously sought fugitives here. What's the station saying, Lisa? Between snarls of static, the detective said, Carter broke. As soon as we gave him Mendoza's files, he began talking. But it's worse than we anticipated, Emily. Even at the state level, corruption exists. Emily swerved to avoid an old mining cart, which makes sense. They were occupying more than simply towns. They were creating their own covert administration. Vega's car abruptly veered along a little access road ahead. Emily knew the path. It led to one of the bigger entrances of the mine. She said he was going underground. Can your group establish a perimeter, Johnny? We're already on the move, but we have company, Emily. There are several cars coming from the south. Reinforcements from the cartel. Emily's thoughts were racing, weighing her possibilities. The underground complex featured a labyrinth of rooms and tunnels that were ideal for trapping or concealing. What else do we know about Vega, Bennett? The others are former special forces. His true worth, however, is technical. Their whole command and control system was created by him. He can still activate the failsafe if he gets to a hardened facility with computer access, Emily concluded. Close emergency services in several different jurisdictions. Make enough trouble for their folks to flee. Vega had just parked his truck close to the main entrance when hers blasted into the mine complex. Emily watched him take items out of the trunk using her night vision. Portable servers and laptop cases. "Martinez, how are those contacts at the state level going?" "Names are coming in," said Lisa. "Senior law enforcement officials, lawmakers, and judges. They have folks all over the place. The leadership of half of the state police is corrupted." With her gun at the ready, Emily parked her truck and headed toward the mine entrance. She was able to read the terrain and anticipate the movements of her prey when they were cornered thanks to years of expertise. Clara's voice broke the silence. "Emily. I just received word from my contacts in town. Vehicles from the cartel are approaching from all sides. They are no longer attempting to hide. Because," Emily said bitterly, "they don't have to. Vega can travel freely if they set off that failsafe. No contact, no emergency services, no police response. Total mayhem." Just as she arrived at the mine entrance, gunshots broke out around the fence. The reinforcements from the cartel are being engaged by Johnny's crew. Emily commanded all squads to hold the line. "Keep them occupied. When I capture Vega, this is over." Bennett cautioned Emily. "The length of those tunnels is miles. He could have automatic defenses, backups ready, or anything else." However, Emily Cooper hadn't given up on challenging prey to become the most prosperous bounty hunter in 3 states. She adjusted her night vision, checked her weapon, and stepped into the shadows. "He's counting on that," she said icily. "However, he's going to discover something that all of my earlier targets discovered too late." "What is that?" Lisa inquired. "There are more ways to get caught in a maze the more complicated it is." Emily could hear the skirmishes going on above ground as she vanished into the depths of the mines. But it was just hunter and prey down here in the dark. Furthermore, Emily Cooper was at her best. Like old veins of black stone, the mine tunnels extended into the darkness. With her night vision, Emily navigated the complex in silence, discovering a labyrinth of hallways and rooms. She could hear Vega moving forward. Professional and thoughtful, yet with every minute that goes by, the urgency increases. "Benton," she muttered. "Down here, what am I dealing with?" The FBI agent retorted, "These mines were automated before they shut down. Security doors, electronic ventilation systems, etc. If the previous control mechanisms are accessible to Vega." Throughout the structure, massive steel doors started slamming shut as if on cue. Emily heard antiquated equipment churning to life. After years of not being used, ventilation fans are whirling up. She said, "He's taking over the infrastructure, figuring out a different way to get past a blocked area. Working against us with the mine's own mechanisms." Things were getting worse above ground. She was able to hear Johnny organizing his team's defense against waves of cartel attackers via her composure. Between bursts of gunfire, Johnny reported that they were pressing hard. "These aren't your average shooters. They've received military training and know the right strategies. Hold them as long as you can," Emily said, following Vega's trail of oblique clues. "Ancient equipment with new scrapes and disturbed dust. We must prevent them from getting to the mine entrance." Lisa's voice was urgent. "Emily. State police just sent word. Suddenly, half of their tactical units are moving. For maintenance, they are not available. They are losing their ability to communicate." Bennett sensed that it was beginning. Vega is putting the failsafe procedures into practice. Emergency services and police departments. One by one, he is shutting them down. Emily arrived at a crossroads where several tunnels met. She saw new boot tracks in the direction of the former control room using her night vision. However, something didn't feel right. "Too obvious," she said, taking a closer look at the scene. Another pair of nearly undetectable prints was there, making its way to the secondary maintenance shaft. "What's the situation in town, Martinez?" The investigator said, "It's getting weird. Dropping cell towers and broken traffic lights. The backup generators at the hospital are also malfunctioning." Emily proceeded cautiously down the maintenance shaft while he tested the systems, confirming that he has complete control before executing the complete shutdown. Her intuition was right. The shaft went to a more recent area of the mine, where historic stone walls and contemporary machinery clashed. She could see light leaking from a tiny room ahead. Vega's voice echoed plainly through the tunnels, "I know you're there, Cooper. Amazing that you've followed me this far. However, you have no idea what you're up against." Emily hid while evaluating the situation. A temporary command center has been set up in the room ahead. She could see Vega working at several laptops, surrounded by portable servers, through her scope. She kept him talking while she prepared her strategy by responding, "I understand plenty. You are their insurance policy, not simply their tech expert." She could hear the joy in his voice when he finally figured it out. "Lorena? Mendoza? They are only the portion that is visible. Controlling the infrastructure is where the true power lies. I can bring 12 counties to their knees with a single button." There was additional shooting above ground. Johnny's voice was tense, "Emily. We're falling behind. They are carrying big weaponry with them." She said, "Just keep them busy a little longer," and turned back to Vega. "Many innocent people live in those counties." As he talked, Vega typed quickly, "Casualties of progress. The future lies with the cartels. Conventional governments, borders, and jurisdictions are all becoming outdated. Something fresh is being built. You're using blood money to construct an empire." Vega retorted, "Money is just the beginning. We have complete control over these systems. Utility grids, emergency services, and police response times. A new type of region where boundaries are replaced with data." Emily took her place quietly, hiding behind the mining machinery. Vega could see programs running and systems going down in various jurisdictions on her monitor. "Benton," she muttered. "You've got anything, tell me." "Working on it," said the FBI guy. "He's good, though. He switches protocols each time we stop an attack." "You're right," Vega said. "The FBI's cyber team is unable to keep up. I've put 3 more encryptions in place by the time they figure out one. You're skilled at stalking people, Cooper, but this is my domain." However, seeking the most dangerous fugitives by playing their game had not allowed Emily Cooper to survive for 15 years. She was ready to remind Vega that sometimes the most traditional hunting techniques were still the most effective, while he concentrated on his cyber warfare. As additional systems in the state fell dark, Emily saw the screens at Vega flicker with a cascade of code. She understood better than to follow his instructions, even though the mine's former control room had turned into a virtual battleground. Bennett said that 3 additional police departments had just lost contact. In 2 counties, emergency response systems are malfunctioning. Emily moved stealthily through the darkness and murmured, "Keep him focused on your cyber team. Make him believe that's the true danger." Vega's fingers darted over several keyboards, his focus split between putting his shutdown procedures into place and protecting against Bennett's cyber attacks. "Cooper, you still don't get it. Control is the issue here, not computers." "Oh," Emily said, adjusting her posture deliberately, "I understand control. Like when you're so engrossed in your screens that you fail to recognize the world around you." Vega's voice became hesitant for the first time. "What are you discussing?" Above ground, as Johnny's crew fought the cartel forces, explosions shook the mine entrance. Johnny and Emily reported in between shots. "We can't keep them for very long. Heavy weapons are being brought in greater numbers." "Just keep them occupied," Emily said. "What is Martinez's status?" "Found Carter, private documents." The detective spoke in a somber tone. Dates, names, offshore accounts, all of this pointed to a person known as the director. Even Lorena appears to report to them. As she carried out her plan, Emily put that information away. She had been laying little charges around the chamber in a calculated manner while Vega concentrated on his cyber warfare. Perfect for her purpose, but not enough to kill. While continuing to type, Vega declared, "You're trapped down here. You will never return to the surface, even if you stop me. Elite teams have been dispatched by the cartel." Emily gently said, "That's your mistake," as if I needed to get back up. She set off the initial charge. Despite its small size, the explosion was destructive in the little area. The air was heavy with dust and debris, and Vega's screens flickered. They were left in the dark after the second charge destroyed the mine's deteriorating electrical system. No. Vega rushed to use backup power to keep his systems operational. "Are you aware of your actions?" "Leveled the playing field," Emily said, navigating the shadows she had spent years learning to control. "Greetings from my universe." Bennett's voice was urgent, "Emily. It worked, whatever you did. He has broken his defensive protocols. His systems are being examined by us." Vega withdrew a weapon and fired into the darkness without seeing. "Do you believe that this makes a difference? The cartel has more power than you may think." "The filmmaker." Emily made a mistake and interrupted him, her voice sounding as if it were coming from somewhere. "Believing that traditional hunting techniques may be replaced by technology." She saw Vega lose her cool through her night vision. Despite his extensive training, he wasn't comfortable in this situation. All his technical know-how was useless in the solitude and the stone and darkness. Clara's voice pierced the silence, "Emily. Teams from the cartel are relocating to the area. They are attempting to incite fear by striking civilian locations." Vega cried out, still looking into the darkness, "That's right. Another way to exert control is through chaos. They'll be pleading for someone to bring order back by the time we're through." "Martinez?" The detective answered, "I'm already on it. Key regions are being evacuated by my trustworthy officers. However, Emily. Carter files contain something else. The filmmaker. They have more ambitious plans. A reset procedure of some sort across the whole Southwest." As Vega battled his malfunctioning systems, Emily slipped softly behind him. She needed him alive, but one shot would finish it. He needed to know more about this enigmatic filmmaker. She said, her voice resonating off the stone walls, "Final warning. Give up now, or see why I was dubbed the Shadowhunter." "You don't understand," Vega said with a frantic laugh. "I'm not just a tech guy from a cartel. I created all of their infrastructure. I was personally recruited by the director to." His sentence was interrupted when Emily delivered a clean hit that sent his weapons tumbling into the shadows. The next battle was short but fierce. Emily had spent years honing her fighting skills in cramped quarters, whereas Vega had military training. She had him locked up in a matter of seconds. "We're prepared for extraction, Bennett. Take as much information as you can from his systems." Johnny's voice was tense, "Emily. There are several cars coming from the south. Reinforcements from the cartel." However, Emily's focus was on one of Vega's screens, which was the only one that was still operational. A message was passing through the static. "The reset protocol has been initiated. Regards from the director." The hunt was far from ended. Its most perilous stage was about to begin. Emily faced her prisoner as emergency illumination surged through the mine's control room. As the reset protocol countdown proceeded on his remaining screen, Vega sat zip-tied to a chair, his calm exterior erupting. As he saw the numbers drop, he remarked, "You have no idea what you've started. There is no loss for the director." "Never." Emily's voice remained firm as she answered, "Then let's talk about the director. Someone with enough connections to bribe state officials to hold a position of authority over cartel bosses." She could hear the fighting going on above ground through her composure. In the face of waves of cartel forces, Johnny's unit was engaged in a desperate holdout. Bennett interrupted Emily abruptly. Everything is being affected by the reset procedure. Power grids, emergency services, and police systems. It goes beyond simply turning everything off. It's eradicating them entirely. Emily knew they were erasing evidence and causing turmoil in order to hide their escape. Vega grinned in spite of his predicament. The director is aware that the true power lies in knowledge. There won't be any digital evidence of their activities by dawn. In the midst of the commotion. They slip away, said Emily. Using the pandemonium as a pretext, their state-level officials divert any inquiries. Martinez's voice was tense. Emily. Something was just discovered in Carter files. He was present at a closed-door meeting in Washington, D.C., 2 years ago. Cabinet ministers, military officials, and a potential director were among the guests. Emily observed Vega's response. Someone with enough ties in the government to enable all of this. The mine entrance was jolted by another explosion outside. They've broken through the perimeter, Johnny said. There are several cartel teams advancing. Emily's thoughts were racing with potential solutions. Time was not on their side. Bennett, how is the protocol being stopped? The FBI agent said, it's military grade. Intended to spread like a virus through interconnected networks. Perhaps we can slow it down, but... Vega interrupted, you can't stop it. It was made to be unstoppable by the director's team. Within 15 minutes, all systems go dark. 3 states' whole infrastructure collapsed. Clara's voice was urgent, Emily. Residential areas are being invaded by cartel teams. In order to hide their activity, they are seizing hostages and causing additional mayhem. Emily felt the pressure of authority. She had to make a decision with thousands of lives at stake. Either find the director or protect defenseless bystanders. You have run out of time, Vega mocked. You will never be able to contact the director, even if you manage to get their name. Not with their influence, not with their connections. They will once more be impenetrable by dawn. Emily paid close attention to her prisoner, there was something in his voice. You're not correct. The director isn't going anywhere, is he? Vega confirmed it with a small flinch. What are you saying? Emily thought, this is too big, too complicated to coordinate remotely. The corruption network, the cartel teams, and the reset procedure. The director must supervise it directly and be in close proximity. She heard Martinez's gasp through her composure. That meeting in D.C., Emily. A private compound just outside Red Mesa is owned by one of the participants. Said to be a business retreat center, it is well fortified. In between shots, Johnny said, military-grade security for corporate retreat. We had been watching it for weeks. There has been a lot of traffic lately, including diplomatic cars and government plates. Emily watched the terror seep into Vega's eyes as she leaned in close. The director isn't going anywhere. From a safe command center, they are monitoring the progress of their plan and managing everything from their compound. Emily Bennett advised waiting 10 minutes for the reset procedure to finish. To stop it, we must establish a direct connection with their systems. Vega remarked, you'll never reach them in time, but his self-assurance was eroding. The purpose of the compound security is to prevent direct attack. Emily finished, although she wasn't familiar with all of their procedures. Their chief technology officer, perhaps. Vega's eyes glowed with understanding. Do you want me to assist you in entering? I want you to decide, Emily said icily. Help us put an end to this, or you risk being known as the person who contributed to the loss of thousands of innocent lives. The mine was rocked by another explosion. Johnny yelled, Emily, we're almost overrun. She turned to her prisoner. It's time to make a decision, Vega. What will it be? After glancing at his countdown screen, the technician turned back to Emily. She could see the instant his loyalty crumbled in his eyes. He said that the chemical had a flaw. Lastly, a maintenance tunnel that serves as an escape route in case of emergency. I am aware of the access codes. Emily was on her feet already. Bennett prepares to compromise their systems. Martinez works for the state police. Keep the civilians safe, we have faith in Clara. The tactical leader assured Johnny that we would keep them for as long as possible. With her thoughts already prepared for the attack, Emily examined her weapon. From the protection of their stronghold, the director had spent years constructing their shadow empire, influencing events, and compromising authorities. They were going to find out why 3 states had made Emily Cooper their most dreaded bounty hunter. The largest predators occasionally believed they were safely concealed in their dens. Like a contemporary fortification, the director's compound sprang from the desert. Its security systems combined business concealment with military precision. With Vega at her side, Emily followed his hushed instructions along the maintenance tunnel, keeping an eye out for any indications of dishonesty. Bennett noted that the reset procedure takes 5 minutes to finish. We need a direct line to their command center, Emily. She could hear the conflicts raging on all across Red Mesa through her communications. Johnny's group is engaged in a last-ditch escape. Martinez is in charge of civilian security coordination. Clara is assisting families in escaping the escalating mayhem. There's a security patrol ahead, Vega said. Every 3 minutes, 4 men rotate. A former Delta Force member who serves as the director's personal guard. Emily looked over her gear. Their trends? Expert. No gaps, no blind spots. They consider all shadows to be dangerous. Good, said Emily icily. They won't be shocked then. She moved in a ghostly manner. She had learned how to become one with the darkness after years of chasing fugitives. Silently, the first guard was rendered unconscious by a precise chokehold. The second didn't anticipate her. Martinez interrupted Emily abruptly. I discovered something in Carter records. Senator William Morrison is the director. He has been using his private security company for everything. A lawmaker? Emily used mechanical precision to disable the third guard. That explains the ties to the government. Bennett went on, not just any senator. The Homeland Security Committee's chair. He has been assisting cartels in eluding law enforcement by exploiting sensitive intelligence. Emily was on the move when the final guard raised his weapon. A quick battle, and he fell unconscious with his friends. Vega checked security feeds on his phone and advised that 2 teams were convergent on your position. They are aware of a problem. Emily arrived at the maintenance access panel that would take them to the lowest floors of the complex. Time, Bennett? 3 minutes. Emily, in order to halt the protocol, we will require administrative access, even if you manage to get to the command center. As she saw Vega enter the access numbers, she answered, that won't be a problem. Will it? The technician's hands began to shake a little. The filmmaker? He'll recognize me. Emily retorted, the director's empire is collapsing. The only thing you should be worried about right now is which side of history you want to be on. With a gentle hiss, the panel opened to expose sterile hallways that stood in stark contrast to the industrial atmosphere of the maintenance tunnel. Johnny's voice was desperate, Emily. We are reverting to a secondary role. Teams of cartels can see at night. Heavy armaments. They no longer even make an effort to hide. She walked through the immaculate halls of the facility and said, hold as long as you can. Martinez? Reported civilian casualties, the detective said somberly. They are aiming to cause as much disruption as possible by attacking power plants, hospitals, police stations, and infrastructure. Through the comm, Emily heard gunfire, and her jaw tensed. A corrupt senator was watching her town fall apart somewhere in this castle, hoping that the mayhem would conceal his escape. Vega indicated a strengthened door there. center of command. The director's security team, however, Emily. She concluded, they're the best money can buy. Ex-military, extremely skilled, and totally devoted. He cautioned you not to confront them directly. Too many. Emily looked at her ammunition. Who mentioned going head-on? Bennett reported tensely that the reset routine was 1 minute away from finishing. Emily heard voices through the door. Professional, calm conversations about taking thousands of lives. About their corruption being protected by witnessing a town burn. Vega, she uttered softly. Final opportunity. Will you assist us in putting an end to this? Or should I put your name on the list of those going tonight? The technician glanced at the door of his old master. Then back to Emily. She observed the moment when something else took the place of the director's terror in his eyes. The urge to accomplish something correctly at last. He responded hastily, the security team has one weakness. My protocols are used for their communications. Maybe for 30 seconds, I can cause a disturbance. Emily gave a nod. Prepare yourselves, Bennett. Martinez, work with the reliable state police. Keep the folks safe, Clara. We'll hold them back, Johnny. Through volleys of gunfire, the tactical leader made a pledge. Just get this done. Emily took one last look at her firearm. It was the architect of so much agony who waited beyond that door. In a command center that is electronically secured and guarded by special warriors. They were going to find out why Emily Cooper had been 3 states' most successful bounty hunter. The predator with the largest weaponry or the most guards wasn't always the most dangerous. With nothing left to lose, it was the one. 30 seconds. Emily would only have that when Vega caused the breakdown in communication. Before Senator Morrison's security staff could react, it took 30 seconds to break into a heavily guarded command center. Bennett reported tensely that the reset protocol was at 98%. Give me access to their mainframe as soon as you're inside. The noises of fighting reverberated from across Red Mesa through her composure. Street by street, Johnny's team is engaged in combat. Martinez is in charge of civilian defense coordination. Clara is assisting families in escaping the chaos that is growing. Are you ready? Vega was making last-minute changes to his phone when she questioned him. The technician gave a somber nod. On my signal, their communications will stop. However, Morrison's inner circle, including Emily, are more than just security. They are sincere believers. They believe that they are creating a better world. By setting mine on fire. Emily took one last look at her guns. Tonight is the last day of that. Now the disturbance was caused by Vega. Emily's movements were deadly accurate. 30 seconds of sheer action, honed from years of hunting hazardous fugitives. Vega's override overrode the electronic lock on the door. Morrison's security detail was inside, momentarily confused, groping for their dead earpieces. She dismantled them with surgical skill. Before they could respond, the first 2 fell. They are rendered unconscious by precise blows. Emily was already inside his guard and the 3rd man was able to lift his weapon. When the 4th reached for an alarm panel, he was struck in the nerves, suddenly falling to the ground. Clear, she declared, locking down the space. Bennett? The FBI agent reported that they were now gaining access. But Morrison isn't here, Emily. Emily could look into an adjacent office from the windows of the command center. Red Mesa was blazing on several screens. Teams of cartels marching across the streets. People are running away in fear. She noticed he was observing. From somewhere within the compound, keeping an eye on everything. Emily. Johnny sounded desperate in his voice. Back to the town square we are. Our positions are being overrun by them. She walked to the main computer tower and gave the command to hold them as long as possible. Stop that protocol, Vega. The technician flitted between keyboards, making an attempt to override, but... Hold on, there's a problem. There is no response to the orders. A new voice spoke from hidden speakers since I had altered the codes. Senator Morrison spoke in a cool, collected manner. The sound of a guy accustomed to authority. Did you honestly think I would entrust complete control to anyone else? Emily looked around the room, spotting possible access points and security cameras. Senator, it's over. We have evidence of everything. The cartel links, the corruption, everything. Evidence. In fact, Morrison laughed. I am the chair of the Federal Law Enforcement Oversight Committee, my dear. Any proof you have collected will be deemed a national security issue by morning. Bennett cautioned that the reset procedure was finished. We're losing everything, Emily. Utility control systems, emergency services, and police databases. Section by section, Emily watched the lights in Red Mesa go out through the office windows. On Morrison's screens, cartel groups advanced through the streets with ever-increasing audacity. See? Morrison's tone was one of contentment. Another way to exert control is through chaos. They will be pleading for someone to bring order back by dawn. The person who can send in federal resources. You, Emily said icily. The community is saved from enigmatic terrorists by the senator. Timely re-election for a hero. Perception is key in politics, Ms. Cooper. The cartels obtain their channels for smuggling. My emergency powers are increased. Additionally, a few thousand people come to value the protection provided by their country. Martinez interrupted Emily abruptly. The state police are no longer in contact with us. Good cops are disappearing. However, cartel teams continue to communicate by radio. Vega saw that it was because they were using our systems. Examining the configuration of the command center. The senator's security company was the conduit for military-grade communications. This was something they anticipated. Emily's thoughts were racing, weighing her possibilities. Morrison was observing. However, where did it come from? What sort of man plans devastation and remains near enough to see it happen? Just as Johnny's voice crackled through poor communications, she received the answer. They've arrived at the town center, Emily. We are unable to contain them any longer. She looked at the screens of Morrison. The angles of the camera. One monitor showed the building schematics. The panic room is where you are. Up one floor. Walls with reinforcement. Access to a private elevator. An ideal view of your work. Then a pause. Excellent. But it's irrelevant. Red Mesa is entirely black in 5 minutes. My cartel cronies crush all opposition in 10. And by daybreak. Do you truly want a close-up look at your handiwork? There was lethal promise in Emily's voice. Senator, keep an eye on things. I'll tell you why they dubbed me the Shadowhunter. Another area of Red Mesa darkened, as if to emphasize what she had spoken. However, Emily Cooper had been pursuing prey through the dark for years. She was aware that sometimes tricking a predator into believing they were safe in their cave was the only way to capture them. It was almost time for the last hunt. The upper level of the facility was a tangle of conference rooms and executive offices, all set up to give the appearance of genuine business. With each step, Emily approached Morrison's panic room, moving through the dimly lit hallways like a shadow. Vega was working feverishly on his tablet behind her, trying to extract as much information as he could from the systems of the compound. Bennett said the county's power grids were failing. There is no light at all for emergency services. Half of our federal response teams are no longer in communication with us. Emily could hear the fighting going on all around Red Mesa through her communications. The team led by Johnny is fighting block by block. What little honest law enforcement there was coordinated by Martinez. Clara is assisting citizens in finding safe paths through streets that are crowded with people. Vega studied building drawings, whispering that the panic room was ahead. Independent power and air systems, fortified walls, and military-grade security. It is made to hold up against a tiny army. Emily said, looking at her ammunition, "Good thing I'm not an army." Bennett, how is the reset procedure going? Spreading even now. We're totally shut out, regardless of what Morrison did to the command codes. Even slowing it down is no longer an option. Emily arrived at the outside security area of the panic room. Morrison would be watching her approach through sophisticated sensors and cameras, relying on his elite guards and reinforced position to keep him safe. Johnny's voice was full of unadulterated urgency. "Emily. The town center has been breached." As they move from building to building, cartel teams are pursuing everyone who opposes them. "Our ammunition is nearly depleted." She studied the security layout and said, "Hold on. Just a bit more time." "Coming," Martinez interrupted. Several SUVs traversing the downtown area. Diplomatic plates and black cars. These are no longer cartel soldiers. They appear to be independent military contractors. Emily's mouth clenched. Once the cartel troops have caused enough mayhem to hide their tracks, Morrison's cleanup crew will use skilled operators to remove any witnesses. Clara's voice sounded calm but tense. "Emily. Cartel groups that target particular addresses are reported by my people. To find anyone who might be aware of their activity, they are accessing police databases. They are, of course." Morrison's confident, silky voice rang out from the complex speakers. "No loose ends can be left. You know it's bad for business." Emily arrived to the panic room's last entrance. She was separated from the senator by 2 additional security checkpoints. She could see his elite guards take up positions through armored windows, their motions demonstrating a great deal of special forces training. "Really, you're going to watch," she stated icily. "To defend your corruption, sit in your stronghold and watch while people perish." Morrison said, "Ms. Cooper, people die every day. Their deaths have a meaning, at least in this sense. Sacrifice is necessary for progress." Vega contacted Emily urgently. "I discovered something, but the electricity grid is on the verge of total collapse. The security system in the panic room. It is connected to the primary grid. When all is dark," Emily concluded, "the backup generators kick in. Operating on a separate, isolated circuit. How much time does it take between systems?" Vega checked his tablet after 3 seconds. "The guards will be prepared for that, although perhaps less." Emily's brain was working on a plan. "Can you get the main grid to surge, Bennett? Something so large that when it fails, it damages systems." "Working on it," said the FBI guy. "But Morrison's guards, Emily. These soldiers aren't your typical ones. Their files demonstrate wet work experts and black ops experience. The kind of men that solve issues once and for all." She could hear Johnny organizing his team's last-ditch defense over her communications. "Everything is running low. These teams of contractors. They aren't merely firing for show. They are hunting. Like the experts they are," Morrison said. "Former military, well-trained. They recognize the value of thoroughness." Emily stayed disguised by using blind areas and shadows to get to the first security checkpoint. Morrison's guards kept flawless fields of fire beyond the protective glass. No glaring flaws. There are no gaps in their coverage. "Senator, you're correct on one point," she answered, bracing herself for the next move. "Professionals are aware of thoroughness. We comprehend patience as well. And wonderful quality." Morrison's voice was one of icy laughter. "But ultimately pointless. Red Mesa is entirely black in 10 minutes. My contractors remove all opposition in 20. In order to restore order, federal emergency response teams show there in the morning. A sad circumstance, but one that amply illustrates the necessity of more government security authority. Martinez's voice sounded frantic. Emily. They are causing additional commotion, lighting fires downtown, and pushing people into dangerous areas. Without contact, evacuation cannot be planned. Emily said, hold on. Looking at Vega's tablet's power grid indicators. Hold on, Bennett, everyone. The FBI agent affirmed that you are ready when you are. Poised for a grid surge. But this is your only chance, Emily. For 15 years, Emily has been hunting dangerous fugitives. She had learned the same lesson from each capture and takedown. Chasing prey wasn't always the greatest strategy for capturing them. It aimed to give them the impression that they were safely concealed until their haven turned into a trap. Vega, she uttered softly. Set off all of the compound's alarms when the power goes off. Every warning system, every security alert. Maximum mayhem. The technician understood and nodded. They'll anticipate an assault in the dark. Common tactical theory. That's right. Emily took one last look at her guns. For this reason, we strike before the lights go out. On my mark, Bennett. She could see Morrison's guards through the protective glass. Professional, alert, and prepared for anything. Aside from what was about to happen. You can't really expect this to work. Morrison's tone was one of sincere interest. These men are prepared for any situation. That's training's problem, Emily said. It can make you predictable at times. The wave now came like a tsunami of electricity, Bennett. Just a few seconds before complete failure, every system in the compound cried warning. Emily moved in that moment of sensory overload. She was never anticipated by the guards. They were instructed by their training to employ night vision, wait for darkness, and practice procedures. Rather, she struck them during the commotion before to the blackout. Before they could change their strategy, the first two were eliminated. The third succeeded in raising his weapon, but he was confronted with a moving shadow. Vega said a system failure was coming. The backup generators are spinning. As darkness seized the facility, Emily arrived at the outer entrance of the panic room. The security systems would be fully inoperable for 3 seconds. A fortress built to withstand armies can be breached in 3 seconds. She said, "It's over, Senator," and started to move. "It's time to take responsibility for your actions." Emergency speakers picked up Morrison's laugh. "Miss Cooper, it's just the beginning, my dear." When the lights returned, Emily saw Morrison's last line of defense standing directly in front of her. Her position was the target of 6 operators, all of whom were armed. She could see the senator himself behind them, behind layers of guarded glass, observing the conflict with the disinterested curiosity of a man who had never had to deal with actual consequences. However, Emily Cooper had not beaten the odds to become the most successful bounty hunter in 3 states. She occasionally realized that the predator with the largest weaponry or the most guards wasn't always the most dangerous. It was the one who had everything to fight for and nothing left to lose. With the serene concentration that had made her a bounty hunt legend, Emily confronted Morrison's elite guards. Between her and the senator, who was observing through protective glass, were 6 operatives, all of whom had vast expertise in black ops. Vega was working feverishly on his tablet in the background, attempting to extract as much information as possible from the chemical systems. "Miss Cooper, you've done a good job fighting." Morrison's voice was full of sincere gratitude. "However, this marks the end. My men are ordered to destroy any danger. Not a warning shot. No haggling." Emily noted the location of each guard and retorted, "Funny thing about orders. They are only effective if there are still people around to follow them." The noises of combat reverberated from Red Mesa through her serenity. A desperate holding action is being fought by Johnny's team. Martinez was in charge of the remaining law enforcement. Civilians are being led to safety by Clara. Bennett's voice was urgent. Emily discovered something in the secure servers of the complex. Morrison does more than merely collaborate with the cartels. He has been selling secret intelligence on anything from military movements to law enforcement operations. I have, of course, Morrison said. In the current world, knowledge is power. The cartels are aware of this. Beyond antiquated notions of borders and jurisdictions, they are creating something new. The guards created interlocking fields of fire by moving with practiced cooperation. No holes that are readily apparent. There are no gaps in their coverage. These soldiers weren't your typical ones. They were skilled operators accustomed to taking out valuable targets. Martinez interrupted Emily in a strained voice. Communications from the contractor teams were just intercepted. They are no longer merely causing mayhem. They are systematically removing witnesses. Whoever might be aware of Morrison's operation. Standard cleanup procedure, Morrison said nonchalantly. Leave no loose ends. As I mentioned earlier, bad for business. Emily's thoughts were racing, weighing possibilities and angles. It would be suicide to face someone directly. These soldiers were too professional and well-trained for that. But if you knew where to look, you could find a flaw in any castle. Vega, she said softly. The environmental systems in the panic room. They are self-sufficient. The technician confirmed that it was completely isolated. Communications, power, and air all operate on different circuits. Perfect, Emily smiled icily to herself. What else did you discover in those servers, Bennett? Everything, said the FBI agent. Recorded meetings with cartel bosses, money trails, and sensitive documents. Morrison has spent years creating this network. Morrison added, and it will take years to untangle. When will any evidence be buried in national security evaluations and confidential hearings? Ms. Cooper, the system defends its own. Johnny's voice was desperate. Emily. We're tumbling back toward the lodging. Anybody they catch is being executed by these contractor teams. No inquiries were made. They are, of course. Morrison's voice stayed steady. Later, you can't risk anyone saying. Investigations will begin as the mayhem subsides. Stronger security measures are demanded in response to tragic tales of cartel violence. The ideal environment for extending governmental authority. Emily watched as the guards carefully tightened the rope while adjusting their positions to provide perfect coverage. However, their exactness was a clue. They were adhering to known patterns and trained responses. You're correct on one point, Senator, she said. Yes, the system defends itself. Isn't that why you have backup drives that hold everything? Protection from betrayal? Morrison's confidence paused a bit. You can't possibly. Hided servers, Emily added. Encompassing every aspect of your business. If something were to happen to you, you would be prepared to let go. You're still here, watching, for that reason. Before you run, you must get to those servers. Clara stated that more fires were spreading throughout Red Mesa despite her composure. Cartel groups are systematically eliminating witnesses while hiding behind the mayhem. However, Emily had seen something in the way the guards responded to her remarks. A quick check behind them at a reinforced door. She discovered that the panic room is connected to the server room. Senator, your prison is also your ideal stronghold. You must secure those drives before you depart. Enough. There was the first trace of genuine rage in Morrison's voice. Stop it now. Emily was already moving when the guards moved to carry out the order. She'd learned to read people from years of tracking down dangerous fugitives. To recognize the telltale signs that violated their instruction. These men were skilled operators who were accustomed to using overwhelming force to engage objectives. When someone used their own accuracy against them, they weren't ready. They anticipated Emily's initial action to be a frantic assault. With precise coordination, the guards moved to confront an enemy force. Instead, she disrupted their carefully planned formation with their movement. The first guard was struck with such accuracy that he crashed into his colleague. Emily was already on the move, leveraging their own crossfire positions against them as the second shot at her old position. When the third attempted to change his aim, he was struck in the nerves, instantly dropping him. Vega shouted out to Emily. "Environmental systems. They are overridable by me." "Do it," she said, fighting closely with the remaining guards. As Emily moved within their effective range, their weapons turned into liabilities, and their expertise worked against them in the cramped area. Vega pushed the air system in the panic room past its breaking point, causing it to scream. As the reinforced container started to undergo drastic atmospheric shifts, pressure sensors screamed warnings. Morrison yelled, "Stop this," with genuine terror beginning to seep into his voice. "The entire level will be decompressed." The final guards were struck with such accuracy that their unconscious bodies were evidence of Emily's proficiency in close-quarters fighting. Morrison's insurance policy was waiting in the server room, but she was already heading there. Bennett urgently reported on Emily. "Teams of contractors are retreating from downtown. They are approaching the compound." She accessed the covert servers and said icily, "Let them come." "It's too late." She observed through the protective glass as Morrison became aware of his predicament. The senator's stronghold was now a trap. He had his guards down. The only way out would have to go straight via Emily Cooper, and his confidential data were being uploaded to FBI servers. "That's it, Senator," she said. "Your network is vulnerable. You don't have any guards to hide behind when your contractors face more serious issues." In answer, Morrison reached into his desk and produced a top-tier tactical pistol. "Do you believe that this makes a difference? I still have enough government friends to cover anything. All of this can be classified in the name of national security with just one call." "Perhaps," Emily said, getting ready for the next move. "You must first overcome me, though, as I have spent 15 years learning how to deal with those who believe they are above the law." There was no amusement in the senator's laugh. "While the real powers influence the globe, you continue to play police and robbers and act as a bounty hunter." Emily said, "You're right," with a lethal promise in her voice. "I am the most successful bounty hunter in 3 states. Can you guess why?" As Vega's override strained the environmental systems to their breaking point, the pressure warnings intensified. The atmosphere in the panic room would soon become untenable. Morrison, who had previously handled weapons, raised his weapon with practiced form. "One final opportunity, Ms. Cooper. Leave. Some battles are impossible to win." However, Emily Cooper hadn't given up after 15 years of pursuing the most dangerous fugitives. She was aware that the most powerful or well-connected predator wasn't always the most dangerous. The atmosphere in the panic room thinned as Emily turned across the reinforced glass to confront Senator Morrison. Although his tactical handgun was still aimed at her location, his gaze was constantly drawn to the environmental alerts that were flashing on several screens. He had constructed a castle that was becoming inhospitable. Morrison responded, "You really don't know what you're getting into." His politician was losing his cool. "This has nothing to do with corruption or crime. We are establishing a new order throughout the Southwest. By setting my town on fire." When Emily shifted laterally, he had to change his aim. "By killing innocent people." The noises of fighting reverberated throughout Red Mesa through her composure. Building to building, Johnny's team is engaged in combat. Coordination of resistance by Martina. Clara assisting people in escaping the mayhem. Bennett's voice was urgent, "Emily. Received something from the servers at Morrison's. He has been coordinating several cartel activities with the help of confidential intelligence. Law enforcement activities, military movements, everything they would require to evade discovery." "Of course I have," there was no humor in Morrison's laugh. How much money flows through cartel operations do you know? Untraceable billions of cash all need a somewhere to go. We are building a whole new economy. Emily saw a tiny tightening of his trigger finger. The senator was trained in the military. His grip and stance were correct. However, there was a distinction between real fighting and range exercise. Martinez interrupted Emily. Teams of contractors are retreating from downtown. They're on their way to you. Heavy weaponry and skilled operators. Allow them to come, Emily said icily. It will already be too late. Morrison grinned menacingly. Are they going to? My men are Rangers, SEALs, Delta, and former Special Forces. The finest that money can purchase. And if something were to happen to me, they have orders to kill everyone in this compound. Emily shot back, assuming they could get in. Vega? Fingers skimmed across the technician's tablet. Security of the compound has been restored. Every entry point is locked. To breach, they will require huge explosives. You won't save time by buying time, Morrison said, repositioning his pistol grip. Federal authorities will bury everything with just one call from me. Categories related to national security that will remain classified for 50 years. Johnny's voice sounded urgent, Emily. We have injured people. These contractor teams are employing professional kill squad techniques, coordinated attacks, and military methods. Because, Morrison said, that's what they are. Experts at permanently resolving issues. No proof. Not a witness. No loose ends. Emily's thoughts were racing, weighing possibilities and viewpoints. The tension in the panic room was getting close to a breaking point, but Morrison was not giving up. He waited for a clear shot with his finger firmly on the trigger. Observing his responses, she remarked, "You're correct about one thing. The goal here is to establish a new order. Not the one you had in mind, though." Bennett reported that Emily just decrypted further files. There is more to Morrison's operation than just the cartels. Anyone with money has been able to purchase intelligence from him. Foreign agents, organized crime, and terrorist organizations. Numerous federal operations have been compromised by him. A pragmatic stance, Morrison grinned icily. The actual currency of power is information. It is necessary for everyone. The cost is shared by all. It just so happens that the cartels are the highest bidders. Clara's voice carried a fresh urgency through her composure. Emily, sniper positions are being built up across the compound by the contractor crews. They are preparing for a full-scale attack. It's time to go, Ms. Cooper. Morrison's voice sounded almost casual. In a few minutes, my guys will break into this compound. You will never survive, even if you manage to defeat me. However, Emily had seen something about his posture. Every seasoned hunter knows to see this tell. Power was nothing new to the senator. Accustomed to using power and threats to influence circumstances. But worry lurked beneath that self-assurance. You still don't get it, she said. Changing positions once more. You believe that you will escape at the end of this. Making a few phone calls. Concealing evidence. Vanishing with your millions to some faraway nation. And you believe you can prevent me? Morrison chuckled. There are contingencies inside contingencies for me. Without the encryption keys that only I own, the data is worthless, even if the FBI manages to obtain those servers. Vega shouted out to Emily. The atmosphere in the panic room is getting out of control. The difference in pressure. It's just what we need, Emily said. Did you receive what I sent you, Bennett? The FBI agent confirmed everything. Morrison just mentioned the encryption keys. When he visited those servers earlier, he definitely ought to have looked at what his own security cameras were capturing. Morrison's expression changed to one of genuine uncertainty for the first time. What are you discussing? Senator, the digital age. Emily's tone was one of icy satisfaction. Everything is captured by high-resolution cameras. When entering secret codes, make sure to include keyboard patterns. Morrison's calmness broke entirely. Emily moved, and his second shot missed the mark. Strengthened glass sparkling by the bullet. Before he could adjust, she drew closer. Hand-to-hand fighting training for years takes over. Though it was decades old, the senator had combat experience. In close quarters, his tactical firing position was meaningless. Emily struck with exact power, sending the pistol flying. Focusing on pressure points and nerve clusters. Johnny's voice was caution, Emily. Allegations of breach. They are going to blow up the main entrance to the facility. However, Emily's attention was on Morrison, who battled with the ferocity of a man seeing the fall of his empire. Before she took him down, he was able to deliver one strong punch, working against him with his own velocity. "It's over," she said, tying zip ties around his hands. "You cannot be saved by your contractors. This cannot be buried by your political ties. Your entire creation is collapsing." Morrison growled, "You don't know what you've done. The cartels will not simply vanish. Someone else will assume command. Corruption will persist." "Perhaps," Emily said, taking his gun back. "Not here, though. Not in my community." She could hear Martinez working with state police through her communications. The contractor teams are being intercepted by honest officers. The formation of defensive positions by Johnny's forces. All set for one last fight. Bennett urgently reported on Emily. There are no federal response teams for 20 minutes. However, these teams of contractors. She completed inspecting Morrison's restraints and said she wouldn't wait that long. "Excellent. It's time to remind them why I was the 3 states' most effective bounty hunter." There was no amusement in the senator's laugh. The bounty hunter's mindset is still present. When we're engaged in a far more significant game. "That's where you're wrong," Emily said, bracing herself for the impending attack. "I've never engaged in any gaming. Certainly not when pursuing dangerous fugitives. Not when defending the lives of innocent people. Certainly not right now." She could see tactical teams moving into positions around the property through reinforced windows. To save their employer, elite operatives are getting ready for a precision attack. They were favored by numbers, training, and weapons. As the first breach charges exploded, the facility trembled. Via reinforced windows, Emily observed tactical forces taking up positions. Their cooperation demonstrates a high level of military preparation. Morrison sat safely and angrily behind her, as Vega labored feverishly to keep the compound's defenses intact. Bennett's voice sounded urgent, "Emily. It's still 15 minutes until federal reaction teams arrive. There is no waiting for these contractors." She could hear the conflicts raging on all across Red Mesa through her communications. Final defensive positions are being set up by Johnny's troops. Martinez and the state police are working together. Clara is assisting folks in getting to safety. According to Vega, there were several breach spots. Observing security feeds. They are entering through 3 separate doors. Pattern of professional attack. Emily looked at her ammunition. The mind is buzzing with possibilities. These were not gunmen from cartels. They were operatives of the elite, accustomed to intricate extraction tasks. However, they had a serious flaw. Observing their motions, she stated that they anticipate a defensive battle. Typical reaction to a hostage crisis. "Are you ready, Bennett?" The FBI agent confirmed that all teams were in position. Escape routes have been blocked by state police. Simply spread the word. Emily glanced to Morrison, who, while being zip-tied, managed to keep his smug smile. "Senator, this is your last opportunity. Dismiss them." "Or what?" Morrison chuckled. You're outgunned, outnumbered, and time is running out. This compound will be breached by my soldiers. Get rid of everyone in there. And make sure that no proof is left behind. Johnny's voice was caution, Emily. They are launching their attack. Contractor teams breached many sites at once, causing the compound's passageways to erupt in coordinated combat. Their motion was flawless. Every team is covering angles. Keeping in touch. Moving forward with expert accuracy. However, Emily Cooper had not made it through 15 years of playing defense while seeking hazardous fugitives. She gave an order now. Bringing their prepared blueprint to life. Vega carried out his override, and the lights in the compound went out. The emergency systems did not work. Channels of communication were blocked. And suddenly, well-thought-out assault paths turned into death traps. What are you doing? Morrison insisted. His voice was tinged with genuine anxiety. Changing the rules, said Emily icily. Bennett? Teams from the FBI and state police came out of hiding places outside. The contractor teams are caught in a huge crossfire. The expert operators were caught between two opposing forces. And an internal danger they were unable to identify. The FBI is this. Bennett spoke loudly over loudspeakers. The compound is encircled. Everyone on staff is told to turn themselves in right away. Emily navigated the darkness she had spent years learning to control. Utilizing contractor teams with deadly accuracy. These men were accustomed to working in unison. Disoriented, and incapable of speaking. Their education turned against them. Emily, Martinez said. Downtown, cartel soldiers are retreating. They are losing their leadership structure. Emily answered, because they just realized their political protection is gone, using accurate blows to eliminate a different tactical team. Tonight, everything is about to change. She saw the flawless formation of the contractor team disintegrate into chaos through her night vision. Some made an effort to back off. Others tried to advance. However, no one was ready for an adversary who would use their own strategies against them. Bennett said that federal teams were 5 minutes out. The perimeter has been secured by state police. It's finished. No, Morrison resisted his limitations. You don't know what you did. My co-workers are not going to simply vanish. You're correct, Emily said. Observing the final contractor team give in to enormous pressure. They will not vanish. Justice will be served to them. Each and every one. She could hear Johnny working with state police through her communications. Protecting contractor teams and cartel members who have been apprehended. Martinez is leading law-abiding officers in bringing Red Mesa's streets back to order. Clara is coordinating civilians to assist families who have been injured or displaced. Bennett's voice was satisfied, Emily. I just received word from Washington. Morrison was successful with his encryption keys. We have everything. Financial records, names of dishonest officials, and classified information. The entire network is vulnerable. When emergency power returned, the lights in the compound flickered back on. Emily observed federal reaction teams protecting the area through reinforced windows. Now disarmed and kneeling, elite contractors are being processed by FBI personnel. It's really over, Vega said. Observing Red Mesa on monitoring screens. They were putting out the fires. Everything is back in order. Families coming out of hiding to retake their community. Emily turned to Morrison and told him, the part you planned is over. The difficult phase is about to begin. Rebuilding. Ensuring that this doesn't occur again. The senator's haughtiness had finally given out. Desperately, he replied, they'll bury it. Too many influential people were involved. The system defends itself. No longer, Emily said. Bennett? The FBI agent confirmed that it is currently going live. Morrison's operation was recently documented and made public by all major news outlets. Too much to be buried by anyone. Emily could hear festivities starting in the streets of Red Mesa through her composure. People coming out to support their neighbors. Order is being restored by honest police personnel. A neighborhood banding together to take back their house. Clara's voice was joyful, "Emily. The power has returned to the hospital. Emergency services have resumed operations. The town. It is reviving itself." Morrison finally understood and relaxed his constraints. His ideal scheme. His corrupt network. His empire, which he had meticulously constructed. All of them were destroyed in one night by a person he had written off as a mere bounty hunter. Why? Finally, he asked. Why put everything on the line to stop us? We had a chance to make you wealthy. Emily Cooper had been hunting the most dangerous fugitives in 3 states for 15 years. Who had defeated professional assassins, corrupt politicians, and cartel murders. Grinned icily. Because, she said, some things are more important than money, similar to justice. Similar to a community. Such as demonstrating to predators that prey can occasionally fight back. As federal officials escorted Morrison away, the sky over Red Mesa was tinted in shades of gold by dawn. As emergency vehicles brought order back to the compound, Emily watched from the entrance. As neighbors were rebuilt by families. Her town started to recover. Now what? Quietly, Vega inquired. Right now. Emily considered her saloon. About the group of people who had united against corruption. Regarding the future they had battled to save. We're rebuilding now. Improve something. She heard Johnny organizing cleanup efforts through her composure. Martinez is bringing back appropriate policing protocols. Clara is in charge of community support initiatives. The revival of a town. Stronger as a result of fighting evil together. Because she recognized a basic reality, Emily Cooper had become the most successful bounty hunter in 3 states. The most wealthy predator wasn't always the most dangerous. Or the greatest amount of force. Or the most ties in politics. The predator who remembered what they were fighting for was sometimes the most dangerous. Who realized that fear and corruption were not the sources of true strength. However, from uniting against those who will destroy everything that is worth preserving. Red Mesa would be rebuilt. Emily Cooper would be at her saloon, observing. I'm prepared to remind those who have forgotten. This village had learned to defend itself. A community that was stronger after overcoming evil. A house that is worth defending at all costs. 2 more amazing tales await you directly on your screen in the next section. You won't want to miss these if you like this one. To watch, simply click. Remember to subscribe as well. A lot would be at stake.
Disclaimer. This channel stands against all forms of intolerance, discrimination, racism, and violations of human rights. The stories shared here are original creations, developed to encourage reflection, understanding, and constructive dialogue. All content is produced with a commitment to respecting diversity and honoring human dignity.